welcome everybody to a very quiet episode of This Uncanny Earth. As always, I am your host, Robert Solomon. However, we do not have our good buddy Spider joining us tonight. He is actually doing a stage show out at a meadery about 45 minutes from here. So wish him all the best. This is one of his first music lineups that he is doing. So he is out promoting and making it happen. So tonight you guys get to deal with only me. So welcome. Hope you guys can hear me. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a good day. Hope everybody enjoyed their Friday. Thank you, James. Of course, James is our good buddy. He's always here supporting the show. Thank you, James. And of course, we're bringing him in momentarily. But our good buddy Steven will be here momentarily to talk to us about curses. So what's up, everybody? How is everybody's weekend shaping up to be? I hope very well. I didn't do much today. What's up, River Lemon? Let's go ahead and throw that up there. What is up? River Lemon is here. Hello, River Lemon. Welcome. Over from the Twitch area of things. If you guys need to know where I'm streaming from both YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. So, but over on Twitch, I am the Uncanny Alchemist. So, and there's my buddy Zach. Like clockwork, the man shows up. Yes, I am here. Unfortunately, I was not at the Y today because I had to put the car in the shop for a few days. I just got it back. And a nice hefty $700 repair bill later. Here we are. But hey, that's the state of things, and that's how it happens. So I appreciate all of you showing up tonight. Tonight we're going to be asking what you believe. I'm going to be asking you guys a series of questions, and we're going to have comments and all of that good stuff coming in about what you believe. What do you hold dear? What do you believe? What do you believe in? Of course, we have Brittany Green here. Hello, Brittany. Welcome. I actually had talked to Brittany about being on the show, so we'll be getting a date, having her come on soon. So yes, River, big oof indeed. But you know, when you own a car, that's the things that happen. So you know, you got to spend money. It sucks. And you know, maybe I should just get into the business of becoming a mechanic for myself. This way I could fix my car and not have to pay near as much, because the part probably did not cost near as much as the time and the labor, but that is neither here nor there. So let's bring in our good friend Deadpool, aka Steven. Let's see what's going on with him in the world of Steven land. Steven, are you there? Oh, he's a constant Jermaine fan. There's Steven.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I don't know why my camera's not working tonight.
Oh.
That's happening. But you still got the world, so, you know, good enough, right?
So, Steven, how you been since last show? How's everything going for you?
I'm good, but I just got to say, I got to ask you a question, though.
Yes, please.
Ask me. You're not a criminal, are you?
Oh, this will be a good one. I am not, but go ahead. You might as well go ahead.
Okay, because your name is Rob, so I just wanted to make sure you don't rob people. And I mean, I would make a dad joke, but I'm not a dad, so I'm only allowed to make bad jokes. I apologize for that.
It's okay. We understand. So I guess you're not fired this week, because you are indeed a Count Saint Germain fan.
Yeah, you fired Spider tonight, right?
Yeah, he's fired.
It's been a long time since he got fired.
So, but he'll be back next week. He's doing his musical show out in Beach City. So for those of you that know Ohio, Beach City is near a place called Worcester, which is probably about a half hour from me. And then Beach City is probably another 45 minutes. So I pass by Beach City every now and again. So I know where he's at. He's safe. I'm sure if something happens, he'll let me know. Or he won't, because that's the type of person he is. So he probably would not let me know, which is perfectly fine. So, Deadpool, what have you been researching for us this week?
This week, I have been researching curses.
Curses?
Yes.
Curses.
I've got Eastern curses, Western curses, and I have something called the Devil's Bible. Where would you like me to start?
Now, see, we talked a little about the Codex Gigas last week. That's the Devil's Bible. Yeah, I with that. Why don't you get us started on Eastern curses? Because I feel like that'd be a good point to go to.
That was my favorite. Big fan of Japanese culture. So, first off, curses are taken very seriously in Japan because they believe in Shintoism, which has a belief that there's a kami, which is a god or a spirit, in pretty much everything, like tree, spoon, the kami of the penguin, whatever. Everything has a kami or a spirit. So there was a Japanese warlord who was so feared that banks will still open checking accounts in his name to this day. And his name was Taira no Masakado. Now, I'm going to skip around a little bit. So basically, he could do this stuff that was known as samurai magic, they claim. And he was able to make basically clones of himself that looked identical. And he was eventually killed by his cousin, who decapitated him after he learned how to defeat his magic. And then skipping ahead a little bit from there, a little bit later, he started. They cut his head off. Sorry, I'm a little anxious, being honest, but
Okay,
I'm working through it.
You got it. You got this.
They cut his head off, and they took him back to the village where the emperor wanted him, to be killed or whatever.
Makes sense.
So when he got back to the village, you remember the stories about Vlad Tepes back in the day? Dracula,
I do.
All that. Okay, so when he got back to the village, the emperor decided they wanted to hang his head on spikes in town to prove a point. This is what happens when you go against the empire.
Oh, yes.
So they put his head on a spike, but here's the thing. His head did not decay even after it was hanging there for like weeks and weeks. His head did not decay. And he eventually became what is known as a Gordio. And basically, it's what the Japanese version of a vengeful spirit.
Yes.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. After his head and all that, his eyes would get really red. And they said, and he was trying to find his body, and he couldn't find his body. So eventually, the villagers gathered up enough courage to tell the head where its body was, and the eyes flashed red before the head flew up into the sky, uprooting the tree that it was hanging on, and it just flew away. And it eventually ended up in a small fishing village where it actually became worshipped for a while as a true warrior for standing up against a corrupt, lazy government, allowing its people to starve to death. But sometime later, in 1874, Emperor Meiji removed the kami status from Masakado, and his shrine was torn down and the head relocated. And they tried to warn him that the head was cursed and it wasn't going to end well. But in 1923, an earthquake and raging fire tornado destroyed much of Tokyo, killing over 140,000 people. And at the time, the Great Kanto earthquake, as it was later known, was considered to be the worst natural disaster to ever strike Japan. And it was supposedly retribution for the destruction of the Masakado Shrine. And after this incident, the U.S. took hint and left well enough alone. They didn't want to get involved. And during a renovation later on, where his gravesite was being repaired, they removed his head once more, and a 4.3 earthquake immediately happened in Ibaraki Prefecture that same day, where his body was located in Inmyoin Temple. And nobody has ever seen the head ever since.
Almost like a Dullahan from Scottish mythology, where the warrior carries around the head of him. Sometimes he can throw it up and scare people.
Which also reminds me of the Headless Horseman.
Yes, same basic concept for the Dullahan as the Headless Horseman, in fact. Very, very well-known legend around these parts, too. There's a couple places here that discuss the Headless Horseman, actually. The Rogues Hollow Historical Society, located about 10 minutes down the road from me, they talk about a Headless Horseman, so to speak. So, but anyways, yes, continue. And Japan is well-known. I want to back you up on this, too. Just to point this out, the Japanese do believe that there is a spirit in everything. The kami do exist. Foxes are very well known for their kami spirits, very mischievous. And so in that regard, he is correct that there is spirits in everything, from small things to large things. It's just the way they believe. Shintoism is kind of like the base root of Japanese belief systems that has existed well before Buddhism. Like Shintoism was like the very first thing that the Japanese believed in, and they believed that everything had spirits. That's why so many things in Japan are very mythological. Like the Kappas. I don't know if you folks know much about the Kappas, but they're the Kappas, like these kind of turtle men that existed, and they're either good and or bad. There's also Jizo statues that can curse or bless. It's a very intricate belief system in Japan, and as you read about Japan and get further along in it, you see that it plays dynamic roles in both the leadership and what would be known as the samurai culture much later on. Did not help the Japanese society much, because honor was a big staple of what they believed, though it would end up basically shooting them in the foot, as it were, in terms of losing very good men to the most ridiculous of things. And then later on, that same honor system would cause teenagers to jump to their death because they got bad test scores. So
You
just
might
also
say
being carried.
honor was a curse.
Yes, 100%.
And
Definitely.
last thing about the Eastern curses is I would also like to say that it was actually treated so seriously that there were even documents of all this stuff in the actual Japanese government, from what I've read.
You have that too in a lot of societies that are older than ours. You'll have these like segments broken off into history of like this happened. It's a very mysterious and very interesting accident, as I put up in my finger quotes there, because accident is the best way to describe it. So, anyways, please continue on, Mr. Deadpool.
All right, so next I would like to go over to the Gigas Codex, I believe we
Ooh,
called it.
the Gygus.
Gygas Codex.
Oh, I talked about this last week. The Mad Monk.
Okay, and real quick before I go
Refresher.
into this, Brittany said she had talked about some literal curses listed in the Bible with me earlier.
Yes. Yes.
So if we could let her talk about that for a second, would that be okay with you?
Is she there?
Just like in the chat, I mean.
Oh, yeah, she can't. Actually, it's funny that she brings it up because I have a couple books. I actually have a witchcraft book from Pennsylvania, The Witch of the Monongahela. And
I believe. Oh, go ahead.
it talks about using psalms. They use different psalms verses as curses. I have that actually. So, and Aokigahara Forest in Japan is haunted as well.
Oh yes, I
They
love
tell you
that
not.
one.
They tell you not to go off trail because, like, you get to a point, and I watched a documentary on this. They had a guy tied to a rope, and they had him go out in the forest a little bit further, and everywhere he turned, it all looked the same. The only way he got back was following the rope. So yeah, the Aokigahara.
And I've heard you're not supposed to record or film anything there either.
Well, that's not anything curse wise. That's more of out of respect for the dead.
Okay,
Because
I wasn't sure.
Those two jerks, Logan and Jake,
Yeah,
they went to Japan and did that, and was not very well respected. And
that's where I was going with that. Yeah.
I've done numerous reports, numerous discussions here on this Uncanny Earth about Aokigahara Forest and what is there, and how at the base of Mount, like it sits at the base of Mount Fuji, so everything funnels into Mount Fuji and up out through. That's what they believe. They believe the like Amaterasu, the sun goddess, and everything else. It all goes up into Mount Fuji and goes back out to her. And Amaterasu is who they believe that all of the emperors of Japan are related to. Like they all have that divine essence in them.
Yeah.
That's why they are the emperors of Japan. Hirohito being one such famous Japanese person that was related to Amaterasu.
Actually, now that you mention Amaterasu, to get back to Masakado, he was actually going against the government because he believed that he was supposed to be the rightful emperor, and he had visions with Masakado. I mean, with Amaterasu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another key point. The political landscape of Japan during that time, the Meiji eras and everything else, was a very turbulent one. There was always somebody vying for power. In that, it was very important for things that had to be there. So yes, in my personal opinion, I think when you have things like these Japanese curses, they come from a very different place than, say, somebody just putting a curse on you. I think there's a very different and distinct level of curse. So yes, we can hear
Okay.
we can hear
I,
Steven
I'm
typing
sorry.
6 miles away.
I'm sorry. She was trying to call me so she can talk on the show. If that would work.
No, that wouldn't work, but we could send her a link if she's connected
Okay.
to her computer and all that.
She doesn't have a computer though. Do you mind if we try it?
If you want, we could try it. Sure,
Okay.
go ahead.
Hang on 1 second. Hold on.
See, we're the show first.
Yeah, let's try it. We're gonna test our luck here. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Can you hear my friend?
It's very, very low. I cannot hear very well with her.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not gonna work. It's not picking it up. Sorry about that. I thought I would try for her.
No, that's fine. We can get her on a show at a later date, and we can actually do a whole show regarding biblical curses, because I know quite a bit about that too. So we can definitely have her on at some point. We'll set up all the audio that needs to happen. Hello there, Lone Star Supernatural. Good evening. Right now we're just talking about. Ryan is a good dude. We had a fantastic show regarding Ryan, so thank you very much for that. We definitely appreciate it. And we're just talking about curses with our good friend here, Steven. Steven, were you finished with the Eastern curses? Would you like to get into some of the Western curses?
Yes. Okay, so for some of the Western curses, I'm going to be a little all over the place with this, if that's okay with you.
By all means, go ahead.
Just letting you know ahead of time, it might get a little confusing. So the Irish people have some interesting curses, to say the least. But from what I heard on the podcast I was listening to, they don't seem to be very serious curses, and mostly are just things you would say when you're in a drunken bar fight. Like, let me try to clean this up a little bit for the family friendly. May a goat break through the heavens to kick you in the butt into the underworld.
Oh.
Just silly stuff like that.
Okay.
And so curses, by definition, are an appeal or prayer for evil or misfortune to befall someone or something.
Oh.
Or they can also be the same thing as damning someone, essentially.
Right.
So sometimes saying adult words can be called curses. I think you get what I'm saying.
I do.
You know. And then there's a curse known as the 27 Club, where many famous people will die at the age of 27. And they wonder if that might be because they're selling their souls, like the Robert Johnson, like you talked about previously. And this one is going to be a long one. But in the TV show Supernatural, they claim that the mark of Cain was the first ever curse.
Yep.
So basically, and I don't know how true this is, to be honest with you. I've never read the Bible. This is pop culture, being straight up with you.
Oh, it's fine.
According to the television show, they say that Satan was trying to tempt Abel and turn him into a demon and bring him down into hell. So then Cain stepped forward to make a deal with the devil to leave his brother alone and, stop trying to twist his soul. But in order for him to leave his brother alone, he demanded that blood sacrifice, and he demanded that Cain had to be the one to kill his brother and become the first murderer of history.
Well, I'll give you a little background on that, because
Okay.
I have read the Bible. Not that I'm a biblical scholar by any means, but I know my way around it pretty well. In the Bible itself, Abel is doing his best for God. He's giving God the sacrifices. He's giving God the offerings that please God. He sees that Abel's giving his best to God. It's not about what he's giving to God. It is how he is giving to God. And God sees Abel as like, hey, he's doing it. He's giving me what I deserve and what is there for us. And so we go along, we see Cain. Now Cain, he gives his goods to God, but it is somewhat different. He doesn't give his best to God. He sees that well, God is fancying my brother Abel, but why not me? But Cain doesn't realize he's not giving his best. So he decides to give the ultimate sacrifice, his brother Abel, because it's a blood human sacrifice. And so he thinks that will please God, that'll appease God. However, he ends up killing Abel and hides his body. And so God comes by and he says, hey, where's your brother? And so Cain says, am I my brother's keeper? And God says, well, I know that your brother is dead because his blood cries up from the ground and I can hear his voice calling to me. And so what he does is he ends up marking his forehead with a curse that if anyone should kill him, right, they will get 7 times 7 times 7 fold worse than what Cain got. And so nobody strikes him down. And it's interesting to note that Cain says,
amazing.
Cain says to the Lord, he says, well, what am I going to do here? And he says, what if I get killed? He's like, I'm not going to let him kill you. You're just going to be cursed for the rest of your days. So, anyways.
Yes. I feel like that was very close to the way Supernatural portrayed it. Basically, in Supernatural, they portrayed it as after he died, he had this mark on his arm that was a curse, the first curse, as they claim, which actually, if he didn't kill things to satisfy the bloodlust of the curse, then it would eventually drain his vitality, which eventually ended up killing him. But then the curse immediately revived him into a demon and forced him to continue killing.
You have to wonder if there's some hints of the Kabbalah behind that, because I know the Kabbalah is a little bit more supernatural in regards to like Jewish mysticism and stuff. So, but anyways,
okay, go ahead.
No, please continue.
Oh, okay. Now the next thing is even before, so Latin, ancient Latin, we derive our modern day use of the curse, C-U-R-S-E, from the Old English, not ancient Latin, I apologize, Old English, C-U-R-S, where one of the meanings was to denote a path or route. So basically, if someone was to deter you from your path, then you have been cursed, C-U-R-S-D. And even before that, a curse as a concept in some of the earliest examples was also known as a punishment given down by deities to sinful humans. Like, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the locusts and the plague curse.
Well, the locust was a curse during the time of Moses and wanting to be free of Pharaoh's control. And so many curses were sent by God, but Pharaoh's heart was hardened each time because he did not want to let those people go. He didn't want to let that workforce move along. So he kept them there until finally the final curse was the killing of all the firstborn, and it ended up being one of Pharaoh's children. And Pharaoh was deeply hurt by that, so he just said, "Take your people and go." Well, he would later on he would regret that and come chasing after Moses, and that's when the parting of the Red Sea happens, and thus Pharaoh and his men drive their chariots deep into that area where the Red Sea was, and the waves and everything come crashing down upon them, killing the Pharaoh and his men.
So it was just because they were big buttholes.
That's not the scientific term, but sure, we can we can go along with that, I guess. Yeah, no, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I've got 2 more small ones, and then a bit more of a more intricate one.
Okay.
So you mentioned the Irish before. So the Irish say that a curse can float around after it's spoken for about 7 years until it finds its intended target. And then in Scandinavia, I found out they say that curses were used as attacks like bullets or guns on your enemies, but the enemy could also use the Uno reverse card and reverse the curse back on the speaker instead. So now I'm going to get into the more intricate one. So Timur the Lame, or Tamerlane,
Tamerlane.
Yeah.
I know who this is.
Okay. From what I found out, supposedly was the great-great-grandson of Genghis Khan.
Yep.
And they took the throne in 1369, and they were known for using the severed heads of their enemy armies to build pyramids. So basically, they were playing Fallout. IRL.
I get, yeah. They were the cons for real, as it were.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
They were the great cons. So he was eventually buried in Uzbekistan, and a large jade slab was placed over his tomb with a warning inscribed: "When I arise from the grave, the world will tremble." And many people believe a great battle would be unleashed should his grave ever be disturbed. And has anyone ever heard of World War II?
Oh, you mean that little battle they had some years back?
Yeah, because
Yeah, I've heard of it. I saw it. I saw that on like YouTube or something. I guess. I
yeah,
guess it was the
because
whole thing.
apparently in 1941, Joseph Stalin sent a team of archaeologists to look for the tomb, and people spoke out, tried to warn him.
Do you
You shouldn't do that.
Do you mean Joseph Stalin?
Yeah, did I pronounce it wrong?
Yes.
Stalin. My apologies.
Okay. It's all right. I was like, wait a minute. Let me make sure this is the
Yeah.
same person.
Yes, that's the one. Okay. And then on June 21st, 1941, the tomb was opened and his skull was removed. And he's like, "Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine."
No.
And then the very next day, Hitler crossed into the Soviet Union, starting the largest German military operation of World War II. And it was known as the greatest battle of the entire war.
Now, I do want to put something on here.
Okay.
A lot of time with curses, you have to wonder if they're self-fulfilling prophecies. Now, what a self-fulfilling prophecy is, you believe it so much that it's going to happen. So, if I say, Steven, you're going to fall down and get some dirt on your knee, right? I curse you to do that. So now you are going to think that. So now you're going to make that happen in your subconscious mind.
With your mind, because reality is objective.
Correct.
Okay.
And Gamer Girlish here. I saw you streaming the other day. What's up? How you doing, Jess? Thank you.
Welcome in, Gamer Girlish.
Yeah, so she talks about manifesting. It's very similar in that regard. Like,
yes,
if
I
you
love
are going
manifesting.
if you are going to have that such a, in a way of like, you're going to get hurt tomorrow, right? If you already plan it in your brain, it's already subconsciously placed. It's going to happen. So that's what I mean by, like,
you think about it.
Yes, a lot of curses seem like more of self-fulfilling prophecies. We also have, if we get into the pharaoh excavations of Carter in the early 1900s, a lot of people were cursed for after they opened King Tutankhamun's tomb. However, a lot of it was found out to be that the microbes in the dust that had sat there for centuries, once exposed to air and people breathing it in, hadn't breathed anything like that beforehand. So a lot of them got sick. But there's a couple, like, one was known as being killed by one of the hounds of the afterlife. They had came looking for retribution, which I found to be very fascinating in that regard. So in that way, I think that, sometimes it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I also think at times we also have what is known as, maybe you shouldn't touch things that don't belong to you, is the best way I can put it. Because if we sit back and we really look at it, and we look at it as a whole, right? I think what we're seeing is, because there's a lot of these, how can I put this? There's a lot of these, the best way I can put it is, a lot of these people that go and they look for different things, right? They go look for things that they shouldn't have, right? And they get hurt or they get injured, and then people say to themselves, well, why did this happen to me? This didn't need to happen to me. Why are we going and messing around with things you shouldn't be messing around with? While I do think a lot of curses are self-fulfilling prophecies, I also think there are things you just shouldn't touch. You should definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, leave alone for your own benefit.
Speaking of leaving things alone for your own benefit and things you shouldn't touch, I actually was going to mention one of those.
Yes, Gamer, I agree 100%.
The Bell Witch in Tennessee. Is that the right location? I got that right?
Yeah, the Bell Witch is in Tennessee, yep.
Okay. There's actually many stories that I've heard about the Bell Witch in Tennessee where you can go to the cave and you can explore. And there's all these signs all over the place that explicitly say, do not take anything from this cave, not even a rock.
Yep.
And then there's all these stories of people that will take a rock or something or whatever, and then they come back and they go, and their life just starts to fall apart. And when it does, they're like, oh no, maybe I shouldn't have taken this rock. So they go and they try to take it back, and if they're lucky, their luck will go back to normal.
I have met people. I can't put their names out there like that, but I met a person that did this, and they had quite an experience doing it. They took a rock from the cave, and like Gamer said, leave well enough alone. I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. They had a series of string events of bad luck. Now, whether once again, if they would have taken that rock without knowing that in the first place, if they would have taken it not knowing that there were signs about, not knowing that there was things about, would they have been cursed? Or would it have just been like a mathematical aspect because everything revolves around numbers? And if we look at things mathematically, things happen. Day-to-day basis, things happen. So what I would be interested in is to test this hypothesis with somebody who is blindfolded, doesn't know the signs, doesn't know what's happening. Just give them a rock and let them take it home and see if these things happen specifically to them. Because the stuff that I did read about, the folks who did take these rocks, go home, they got into car accidents, they got diseases. So I'm thinking, okay, what was the logistical idea that would have worked? What is wrong in your car in the first place? Was there something off? Was had your check engine light been on for weeks, and now all of a sudden you're driving, you get into a car wreck and you blame it on a rock? Where was your health at? What have you been eating? What have you been consuming?
There's so many unknown factors.
Did you just pull an all-night bender getting smashed? You know what I mean? And I would love to see those little intricacies brought to light to see if, in fact, that curse was caused via the rock or via the happenings. Now, I would also be interested to see if there's any radioactivity in that cave, because that could play a part in health issues. Because if you're taking some rocks out of a cave and, it's radiated, that might be a problem. Because I know, where they did the nuclear tests out in Nevada and New Mexico and those places out in the Southwest, some people took some of those rocks back to the house and obviously got very sick because it was radiated, and you're not supposed to do that. But who am I? So, anyways, by all means, continue. My fault.
Yeah, don't take irradiated rocks, and I completely agree with that.
Do that.
That's a very good point. There's just a lot of unknown factors to contribute that make it very difficult to know, if it's real or not. And like Brittany in chat said, it's specifically in Adams, Tennessee, and she will haunt and follow those who steal from her cave and forest. And
which is very interesting. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, mind you, but I always have to look at things from a skeptical viewpoint in terms of, let's see what it could be first, and then if that doesn't work, let's go to the unknown aspect of things, because I think it plays better. And I'm not saying this doesn't happen, but my whole thing with the whole experiment of doing that is, if a person doesn't know the legend or the story, right, are they going to suffer the same fate as a person who knows not to do that?
That's the James Dean car.
That's the kind of question that I have regarding these kinds of things. Like let's say you had this is crazy, but let's throw it out there. Let's say you had one of those robots like from Boston Dynamics, right? That went in, took a rock, and took it out, and kept the rock on its person. That's not a living being. Is that thing in and of itself going to be cursed? That's the kind of things that I wonder, because it's those little intricacies that, are we playing off of humanity's fear of the unknown? So that's why they think these curses happen. And I'm not saying that the energy from what happened to the Bell Witch doesn't sit in that area. I know when people go to Auschwitz or Dachau or any of those places in Germany, Poland, where the concentration camps were, there's a certain energy that sits there. It's a certain just feeling of malevolence and evil and wickedness. And a lot of the time you can feel that in places like the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum and or Mansfield Penitentiary here in Ohio.
You told us how you could feel the dark energy in the room before they even told you the story.
Yes, I knew something was off. Well, as soon as I went into the room, I was like, oh, okay, I know that something isn't right here. I know that something just feels different compared to the other rooms we were in. And then they told us that, and I was like, okay, makes sense. It makes sense. It's a very
Yeah.
small aspect of being able to feel that energy. And there's other places I've been where the energy has been a little off. I always tell them your vibes are a little bit off at Applebee's, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm kidding. And so I think that depending on who you are, I think it's a series of very complicated steps that we
Yeah.
are taking. So,
And then I've got one more, and then I'll let you take over.
oh, thank you.
So you specifically told me to try to find like a new curse for 2024.
Because we don't have a lot of new curses. I want to hear something new. Throw something new at me.
So I found a website that had a bunch of examples. I'll just throw a few out, and then I'll get to the really fun one at the end.
Okay.
So first off, they were like, in 2024, you might have a curse like, several popular cemeteries around Tennessee that are haunted with some graves are cursed. That sounds pretty interesting.
Very much indeed.
But, in 2024, let's get to the funny part of the show. The funny part of curses.
Let's get to the comedy hour.
You might say something like, may all your video games be over bloated and filled with microtransactions.
Oh, that's disrespectful.
That would be like an example of a 2024 curse. Or may all your favorite video game companies start putting abusive DRM into their video games. Oh, wait. Maybe I should stop talking. Maybe I should stop saying these. And then, I know, it is rude.
It's very disrespectful, I agree.
And then,
very
for the most fun one of all, and there is an overwhelming amount of evidence for this curse, which just makes it even more hysterical and comical.
Here we go.
You ready?
Yes, I guess.
The Drake curse.
Please don't. Please do not mention that individual's name on my show.
I know.
This is
Lord Voldemort's curse.
He who shall not be named
will affect you, even if you're just a celebrity in a picture with this individual, or he wears your team jersey.
And they lose?
Yes, this curse means we now have something known as a he who must not be named curse, where he who must not be named has lost so much money on bad bets that people are now convinced that whichever team he supports will lose because of his support being a curse.
It's interesting, and I'll give you a very similar one that I was told, that if you wear your team's jersey on game day, they will lose. Yes, I've heard that before too. I've heard that before.
And
I thought that was pretty interesting.
Oh, and the only thing I had to say left was there's like 3 or 4 fights and then about 6 other random sporting events that lost after he who must not be named publicly stated his support for them.
Wow.
And spent a lot of money. And I will let you take over now.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Deadpool. He is our man on the street. He's giving you all the paranormal goodness that your body can handle. You can catch him every Friday here on this Uncanny Earth. Thank you, Deadpool. We will see you next week. I don't think he's going to say anything. Anyways, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this tonight. Welcome. So tonight we're talking about what you believe. What do you believe? What do you believe? It's interesting that Gamer Girlish is here because she sent us a very interesting, and she's been on the show before. She's actually been on the show 2 or 3 times, I think. She's been on the show when it was just audio. This is probably like 2 or 3 years ago. But she actually had a UFO encounter that she saw some lights in the sky, and I've seen these pictures, and it's very fascinating. So, having seen that, Jess, I must ask, do you believe in UFOs? I mean, you could have said whatever, Deadpool. I didn't. I was like, kind of left me hanging. It's fine. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. UFOs are very fascinating. As a person who has... Okay. So I don't know if I've told you this. I had my own UFO sighting. This was in, I want to say 2020, like the summer of 2020, because everybody was staying home at the time. I was home. I wasn't doing anything. And it was the middle of summer, like it was summer day. It wasn't at night. Like when you see a lot of UFOs, it usually is at night. It was during the day. And I remember just sitting outside. I was on a porch swing, just doing old man things, just rocking on the porch swing, being old man, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how that works. And I remember looking up and I saw, if anybody's ever seen Flight of the Navigator, it's it looks like a sunflower seed, so it's very much like almost like a spade. It almost looks like a spade. It isn't a spade, but it almost kind of looks like one. And so I watched it for a bit, and I watched it disappear and reappear. It'd probably be like this for us, or like this, like if we were looking at the sky, which might have been a couple miles or so. I don't know. My correlation to the distance that far away and how I am now or where I'm sitting, I'm not used to that formula. So I'd have to go find that formula, look it up, and then, obviously go from there. But I saw that and then it just reappeared. And I was like, oh, well, that's odd. That's different. And I saw it 2 weeks later in the same spot. I was sitting in the backyard looking up. It was a nice summer day once again. I looked up and it was the same thing, and it did it again. It did it a second time. And so I thought to myself, okay, this is something. This is something. I've never seen anything like this. And there's been a few instances in my life where I have seen things that I can't wholeheartedly explain. And so this was one of them. Now, if we break this down a little bit further, could it have been some top secret government testing equipment? Maybe. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is probably 4 hours from me, in Dayton, but it's not so, it's not so crazy to assume that maybe they were flying stuff out from Wright-Patterson, because Wright-Patterson is, like I said, real close to me. Yeah, it does feel that way, doesn't it? Like, it's very interesting. It does. You really start thinking like, but I think the reason being is that we go for so long with hearing that all of it's fake. We've been told that it's been fake. We're like, this isn't a real thing. It's been fake. It's been fake for so long. And it's almost like when I talk about giants, I'm doing a presentation on the 26th of March. I'll be in Sharon, Pennsylvania. For anybody that can make it out, I'll be at Sharon, PA, speaking about giants. I've been doing a crazy deep dive into this topic for a very long time, and I've dug up quite a bit, which is kind of a nice little in joke there, because the Smithsonian came around and dug up a little bit too. Not the point. And so, yes, the interesting thing is we're taught from a young age that this stuff can't be real. It doesn't make any sense. But then we start seeing it for our own eyes, and I think that, to me anyways, it sits different. And I still, to this day, I can't explain what it was. There was something there that I can't explain. It wasn't a weather balloon. I always say it's a weather balloon. This was something that was either advanced technology that we have, because they usually say that what you see from the government is at least 25 years behind of what they really have. So if that's the case, whatever we saw up there could have been that 25-year difference of something in the air and different cycles of technology that the government goes through. And if we sit down and talk about Roswell, supposedly there was technology taken from those ships that they were able to reverse engineer a good portion of what the government had already had, and align it with alien technology and sort of reverse engineer everything, which is interesting because we reversed engineered. They did it with Sega, and they were able to make different games for systems because of reverse engineering for the Sega Genesis, which is that's its own conversation in and of itself. So, and I find that fascinating. Like I myself, I do definitely believe in UFOs, having seen one, because UFO doesn't necessarily mean it's an alien thing. It's just something that we don't personally see all the time, and it's very unidentified, I guess, would be the way to go about it. And I don't know if any of you read the Fermi paradox. We go from that, or we can talk about the Drake equation, because the Drake equation is very fascinating in and of itself as well. So to me, yes. So how about cryptids? What do you guys think? Cryptids, real or fake? Do you guys believe in cryptids? Have any of you ever seen one? This one usually gets a couple people. I got my Bigfoot peeps that'll come in here and be like, yeah, I saw a skunk ape in Florida or I saw this, that, and the third. Now remember, cryptid isn't just something like that's completely outrageous. Cryptids can be the more smaller animal entities that we don't think exist, but they do. I personally think yes, I do believe in cryptids, 100%, and I will explain why. Reason being is largely because we have not explored. So tell us, Jess, why are you on the fence about this one? I'm curious why she's on the fence. I love the Fermi paradox. It's a fascinating study. Too many witnesses? Okay. For me, I would have to say yes, only because we have not explored everything there is to explore. We have so many abandoned cave systems, especially here in Ohio and Pennsylvania and West Virginia, like that tri-state area of coal mines that there are just hollowed out mines. Oh, no worries, Lon. We appreciate you just listening. Thank you. Oh, nope, I'm good. I want to go to space. Well, we can ask that question though. No, you're fine. You're fine. To me, I think there's just too much. I would have to agree with you on some of the more out there cryptids. Like when you get to certain ones, I think that yes, they don't seem as viable. But I would say things like Bigfoot, maybe some of your different, maybe your frogmen would be kind of an interesting aspect because I would want to know like the chemical aspects of things because we don't know what really lurks in these deep caves, in some of these swamp areas. I'm not saying that it couldn't be found, but I think when you get out into the deeper aspects of the wilderness that we don't know about, I think there's things out there, and I've said this before. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Once you get out into the deeper aspects of the wilderness, I think there's things that have happened. I think that if we go back and look at, there's the industrialization periods of Victorian England and all the way up to today, and then there's the pre-industrialization periods. And if we look at the pre-industrialization periods, we have a lot more sightings of fae folk. We have a lot more sightings of these entities, of these different cryptids and things of that nature. Oh, if it's because of the screen shaking, that's just because I have the camera mounted on the monitor. I got to get a different camera mount. It gets on my nerves as well. But they're not in here. They're not in here goofing. They're not allowed to be in here goofing. This is a non-goofing room, and they would goof up the place. They would goof it up. But to me, and I can see where gamers coming from with some of the more outlandish ones not being believable. I kind of get that, to be honest. I'm not saying that they don't exist, but they're a little bit harder to substantiate given the area. Now, things like Bigfoot, I do. See that chemical testing part, that's the part that kind of like, we have a place by us in Cleveland. You probably know where Cleveland is, or at least you've heard of Cleveland. I mean, everybody pretty much has heard of Cleveland. There used to be an orphanage on one of the more outskirts of Cleveland, and I'll have to find it. I have it in Linda Godfrey's book. Rest in peace, Linda Godfrey. Such an amazing woman. We have that. Oh, yeah, that's probably them. That is probably them seeing what's going down. Yep. Because they will sit on the outside. Sometimes you'll hear them crying, like, oh, let us in. Like, okay, all right, calm down. It's not that serious. But this place was like an orphanage where they would do experiments on children that had hydrocephalitis, or water on the brain, as it were. And so they did that. Well, it got shut down. And supposedly the kids just were let go. And they roam around the area as these sort of Morlock-esque entities that attack drivers. And there's a road. I'll have to find it and I'll put it up here next week. So in that regard, maybe, yeah, you hear about the dogs. Did you hear about the dogs? This is she brings up a very interesting point in this regard, that they did crank out some of the mutations because of the whole. Now that's a whole nother episode, Jess, that I could get into and thoroughly break down the RBMK reactors that, oh man, I went into a very much ADHD driven drive into Chernobyl a couple years back, like 2021. It's been 2 years now since I've done that one. A very good episode, very fantastic episode. But I agree. And who knows what they're pumping into the water? that's a whole nother issue because we have the Lakeland Frogmen, and they're having a festival this year, so maybe they'll let me speak at it. I enjoy speaking at these things. I enjoy talking about stuff like this. One thing that I always am a big fan of personally that that I think is were real, maybe still are in different parts of the world, giants. Having done the research on giants and having read about the Smithsonian, having read Native American folklore, having read Middle Eastern folklore, having read ancient folklore from, Judaism, Christianity, things of that nature. Okay. Deadpool is able to make his camera work, so we will get him ready for the next. Well, thank you, Brittany, for stopping by. I definitely appreciate you being here. Thank you so very much. I hope you get to join us for more episodes, and we'll definitely be reaching out to you to have you on the show. So thank you, and thank you, Deadpool, for linking us up. It's very much appreciated. Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am. I hope you have a good dinner. And so, to me, having researched giants and having written papers on them and having so many notes on them and compiling enough for a book at this point, I think at this point, I see that. Having at this point done all that research, I can probably 98% say they exist because of the things that I have witnessed, the stuff that I've read. So for me, giants, yes, 100% agree that they existed. They might still exist, though I don't think they are in the same capacity as it once were. Oh, awesome. Oh, well, listen, I'm always ready for new information to enter my dome. This is why I buy multiple books all the time. I have a plethora of books. I have purchased more books in the past 4 years than I think I've ever bought in my entire life, which is hilarious. So yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And because I am over on Twitch, and want to make sure that let me make sure you get a shout out. There we go. Make sure Gamer Girlish gets a shout out. She's watching through Twitch, so I want to make sure that that she gets a shout out for that. You guys won't see it here. Oh, you do. That's awesome. So it does show up here as well. That's awesome. So yeah, go follow her on Twitch. We all did a performance in Boston with Kenny Vigu and a whole bunch of awesome people for Fallout. So a very interesting thing. That was a very interesting time. That whole time frame was very, very interesting because it went from like everybody's having fun to everybody's in the house. That was a very, very, very odd, very weird series of events. And a lot of people say that was where we. Kenny's an amazing dude. Kenny's a solid person, solid human being. A lot of people say that when something happened and we sort of jumped into an alternate timeline, and that's, we weren't supposed to be in the 2020 timeline, that we had jumped into the 20 timeline. I see that a lot, making rounds every now and again, that we were supposed to be in a whole nother part, that we did something when we fired up the Hadron Collider, that it skipped us into another reality. So whether you believe that or not, I don't know. But getting back on the topic of giants and having been studying them, it's a crazy theory, Jess. It's different. Not one I really ascribe to as much. I just think that you control your own reality in a sense. But the Hadron Collider is very interesting, and them firing it up. And they're supposed to be building a bigger one, from what I have been reading, that they're going to build a bigger Hadron Collider, which mankind's track record isn't the smartest. Not always, no. Giants in the Nephilim sense of first Enoch, second and third Enoch, and first Genesis 1. I'm missing the verse. It's not 126. Excuse me. But that, yes, they're giants. But there's also giants in other regards, from Aztecs to Maya to Inca to even in Japan. There's the Dodarachi, which is another form of giant. There are giants in Zoroastrianism, giants in Islam. Now, how is he doing? Actually, to take a quick second, I have not talked to Bobby in so long. That's my guy too. He jumped off of FB, and I have not really seen much of that dude since. Link me back up with him because I definitely would like to be able to talk with him again because he was on the show and we had a fantastic conversation. That was a great conversation. That's my guy. I hope he's doing well. I appreciate that. Thank you. But having looked into South American folklore, having looked into Native American folklore, reading about how the Native Americans fought the Redbeards, who are a race of giants. The Redbeards fought a race of giants known as the Blackbeards. And so it was like these black-haired giants, these red-haired giants, and they were vying for control. Then the Native Americans came in, and then they took the land from them. And it's a very interesting aspect that we see because giantism as we know it today is more of a handicap. It's more of a, you had, I forget his last name was Robert. He was like, I think 8-9 foot tall and he could barely walk. He could barely move. We have Shaq. He would be considered a giant and he played basketball. He did well. And his joints are probably, probably affected in certain ways that ours are not, being gravity and everything else. But at the time, these beings that were, 8-9 feet tall, they could run, they could jump, they could do all these things. The interesting aspect being that Goliath, of course, is the most famous giant out of the Bible. And then we have the Nephilim, and then we have the Rephaim with King Og and the kings around him that Joshua fended off to get back the Holy Land from the invading armies. And so we look into that, and I could see if maybe we just took that and said, okay, that's just one book. But when you have hadiths that were written alongside the Quran, and the Quran talking about, Adam and Eve being, 70, 80 feet tall or taller, right? Then you have Cain and Abel. Now, Abel's body is in Tel Marduk, which is in Syria. It's in Syria. And it's a tell. A tell is a mound. So we would call them mounds here in the US, but a tell, Tell, is a mound that houses holy people. And Abel is one such person, and he was said to be 30 feet. So they have his sarcophagus, and he's laid out in there, but you can't really see him. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. I haven't been there. The goal is to go to the Middle East within the next 4 or 5 years and do an expedition, see what's there, see if all of this matches up, check the Nabateans. The Nabateans were the interesting thing about the Nabateans is the Nabateans were also part of a giant group of people that split in Saudi Arabia. So you had the Nabateans and the Ad. The Ad were giants, and the Ad and Nabateans were from the same tribe. And they split. The Nabateans go up into Jordan. The Ad go down into what would be known as the Empty Quarter, which is on the border of Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Oman. So it's all kind of right down in the middle there. So, yes. But yes, that's it. That's it. Thank you for everybody who showed up today. Gamer Girlish, thank you for being here. Deadpool, of course, thank you for being here. I don't know. It's up to you, my friend. We're going to have to get you in here to do our dad joke. Spider will be back next week. He is busy doing a show tonight. He's promoting a show, so he's out there playing promoter and running around doing all that leg work. So best to him. Hopefully all that works out for him today. Oh, yeah, he's good. He's good to go. Oh, it's okay. Thank you for being here, OCIR, with a cool picture there. I like it. Very, very awesome. Thank you for just showing up, even if it's last minute. We definitely appreciate it. Thank you. If you guys have any sightings, anything on record that you would like to report to us, please send it to thisuncannyearth@gmail.com. If you have seen something and you want to talk about it on the show, please reach out to me, Robert Solomon. You can find me on Twitch as Uncanny Alchemist. You can find me on Facebook as Robert Solomon, and you can find me on YouTube. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are trying to get headway there, and we're doing pretty decent. And thank you, Jess. I always appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Jess has been on, so she can attest to the show. She's been on quite a few times. But yeah, if you've seen something, please let us know. We'd love to talk about it. If you want to send us the encounter itself, we will keep your name private. We never put anybody out there who does not want to be out there. I understand. Yes. And like Deadpool said, we love when people come to hang out. So thank you very much. Our co-host will be back next week. I will not be here. I have some things I have to take care of regarding the show. So I will be out doing that. So just for some more great content for you guys in the near future. I appreciate each and every one of you. I love each and every one of you. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me that you guys came out. Even though I was all by my lonely, I appreciate y'all. You guys are amazing. I love each and every one of you. Hope you all have a beautiful and wonderful day. And as always, why be boring when you can be uncanny? We will see you folks next week. Peace. Have a good one.